Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Our today's topic for discussion is The Listeners, a poem written by Walter de la Mare. As you know, we had completed its text and some questions. We had also discussed its summary and theme. Today we will be discussing it is discussion number third, that is reference to the context. So let us start. Reference to the context, part number first. Let me read the text and then we will try to solve its questions. Right? Reference to the context, part number first. And his horse in the silence chomped the grasses of the forest's ferny floor, and a bird flew out of the turret above the traveller's head. Now question number A is, who does his refer to? Who does his refer to? The answer is the his in the above lines refers to the traveler. The his in the above lines refers to the traveler. Now question number B part is ka, what has disturbed the bird from its nest in the turret? What has disturbed the bird from its nest in the turret? What has disturbed? It is actually the repeated knocking. It is actually the smoke that has disturbed the bird from its nest in the turret. Now the answer is the traveler's repeated knocking. The traveler's repeated smoting has disturbed the bird from its nest in the turret. Now the C part is, which part of the country is the traveler in? Which part of the country is the traveler in? The answer is he is in the remote part of the country. He is in the remote part of the country, in a dense forest in which there is a lonely house. Question is, which part of the country is the traveler in? Answer is, he is in the remote part of the country, in a dense forest in which there is a lonely house. Now the D part of this reference to context is, what is he doing there? What is he doing there? Traveler वहाँ पे क्या कर रहा है? What's he doing there? Answer is, the traveler comes to meet somebody. The traveler comes to meet someone. He knocks at the door again and again, but no one responds him. The traveler comes to meet someone in order to fulfill his promise. That's why he had come from a very long distance. So this traveler comes to meet someone in order to fulfill this promise. That's why he knocks at the door again and again, but no one responds him. This was first part of the reference to the context. Now the second part of the reference to context is, let me read the text of this. But only a host of phantom listeners, that dwelt in the lone house then stood listening in the quiet of the moonlight to that voice from the world of men, stood thronging the faint moonbeams on the dark stair that goes down to the empty hall, hearkening in an air stirred and shaken by the lonely traveller's call. This was the text of this stanza. So now the questions are following. Question number first is, who are the host of phantom listeners? Who are the host of phantom listeners? Who are? Yes, the host of phantom listeners are the supernatural beings. The host of phantom listeners are the supernatural beings or ghosts who had inhabited the lone house in the remote and dense forest. Right? Question is, who are the host of phantom listeners? Answer: the host of phantom listeners are the supernatural beings, or we can say these are the ghosts who had inhabited the house, who had inhabited the lonely house in the remote and dense forest. Now the question is, second question is, what were they listening to? What were they listening to? Answer is, they were listening quietly to the traveler's call. These phantoms, what were they listening to? They were listening quietly to the traveler's call. They were listening quietly to the traveler's knocking. They were listening quietly to the traveler's summoning. Right? The voice from the world of men. It was actually the voice from the world of men. So the answer of this question is what were they listening to? Answer is, they were listening quietly to the traveler's call, the voice from the world of men. Now the C part is, whose is the voice from the world of men? Explain the phrase. This is phrase, voice from the world of men. Whose is the voice from the world of men? Explain the phrase. Answer is, the listeners in the poem are ghosts. They are the phantoms. The lone human being in the poem is the traveler. So the voice from the world of men is the traveler's voice, right? The voice from the world of men is the traveler's voice. Now D part is, who stood thronging the faint moonbeams on the dark stair? Who stood thronging the faint moonbeams on the dark stair? The part, who stood thronging the faint moonbeams on the dark stair? Answer is, these are actually the ghosts. They who stood thronging as the faint moonbeams on the dark stair. So answer is, the question is, who stood thronging the faint moonbeams on the dark stair? Dear students, the answer of this question is the ghosts who had inhabited the house. They stood thronging the faint moonbeams on the dark stair. So the simple answer is the ghosts who inhabited the house stood thronging the faint moonbeams on the dark stair. This was reference to the context part number second. Now reference to the context part number third. let me let me read let me read the text of the poem, that is the stanza here. Ay, they heard his foot upon the stirrup. Ay, they heard his foot upon the stirrup, and the sound of the iron on stone, and how the silence surged softly backward, and how the silence surged softly backward, when the plunging hoops were gone. When the plunging hoops were gone. Now the question is, who are they mentioned in these lines? Who are they mentioned in these lines? Who are they mentioned in these lines? Now the question is, let me read again the text so that we may be able to understand the text first, and then it may be very easy for us to complete these questions. So, A, they heard his foot upon the stirrup, and the sound of the iron on stone, and the sound of the iron on stone, and how the silence surged softly backward when the plunging hoops were gone. Now, question number first is, who are they mentioned in these lines? Please answer. Let you try. Who? Who are they? Shabash. Who are they? Shabash. Who are they? Yes, the answer is yes, the ghosts. Who are they? They mentioned in these lines. These are the ghosts mentioned in these lines. Who are they? They are actually the ghosts who had been mentioned in these lines. Now, question is, where does the sound of iron on stone come from? Why does the sound of iron on stone come from? Yes, the sound of iron and stone comes from the hoofs of the horse, whose iron hoofs, when touched the stony path, produce that sound. Right? Question is, where does the sound of iron on stone come from? Yes, the answer is the sound of iron and stone comes from the hoofs of the horse, whose iron hoofs, whose iron hoofs, when touched the stony path, produce that sound. Now, question number 3 part is, pick up an example of alliteration from the given lines. Does it add anything to the meaning of the poem? Explain. Pick up an example of alliteration from the given lines. Does it add anything to the meaning of the poem? Explain. Which is the example? As you know, silence surged softly backward. As I have discussed already in the poem, it is actually the example of alliteration. Silence surged softly backward is an example of alliteration used in the above lines, right? Does it add anything to the meaning of the poem? Explain. The repeated sounds make the line musical. Besides, it portrays quick return of silence after the departure of the traveler. Right? The repeated sounds make the line musical. The repeated sound make the line musical. Besides, it portrays the repeated sounds, that is silence surged softly backward. These are the repeated sounds. So these repeated sounds make the line musical. Besides, it portrays quick return of silence after the departure of the traveler. Now the last part, that is D part. Which words in these lines create the picture of someone fleeing from the place? Fleeing from the place. Why do you think the person is in such hurry? Let me repeat the question. Which words in these lines create the picture of someone fleeing from the place? Why do you think the person is in such a hurry? Huh? Which words? The words plunging hoops. The words plunging hoops. The words plunging hoops suggest that someone is fleeing from the place. The traveler is in great hurry. Who is that traveler? Who is? Now, question is, why do you think the why do you think the person is in such a hurry? The person here is the traveler, right? So the traveler is in great hurry as he is himself in a state of fear and confusion. Thank you. Wish you all the best. Hope you had understood it. आपका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया.